Hello and welcome back to the channel where we are building a video game from scratch using Love2d and Lua. Here, let me see. Let's mute this. Okay. So we're working on the aqueous collision. So yesterday we got to, basically if there's a gecko chasing us, we can blast him with the water spell. And he becomes flashing blue, and he slows down in walk speed. So this is great. We can trigger the splash to state. He keeps his AI, he's just moving really slow. So we need to do a couple of things. We need to let's see, we need to change the knockback based on the appropriate direction, right? Because if we cast at him, see how he gets pushed down? We're only pushing down upon a collision, and it's kind of like a weird, it takes a little while. He kind of just slides, right? It's like he's falling in some like slick mud or something instead of like knockback from the cast. Right now, you know, we just did it so that if we do detect that collide, we're going to go ahead, just give a positive dy, which moves him down. But we need to make it so that, you know, if you hit him from the top, he'll get a dy just like that. But he should go upwards if you hit him from below. Oopsie. Okay, I accidentally quit out of our T-Monk session. Okay. I don't think we're actually updating the entity's location based on velocity. I think we're doing like a weird thing with it. We can check that. It would be in the entity updates, I think, because we're looking for how we're actually processing the change in X and Y for our geckos to see if we can make the knockback a little smoother and see what's going on there. So we do just kind of process AI and update. So in the process AI, we are essentially deferring that logic to the render, the state machine render. But what about process AI? It's a okay, so it's a method on our state machine, which is what? Okay, so it's just in the walk state, I guess. Okay, so let's open up the gecko walk state. Let's see where we're updating our position. Okay, so here's where it is. Okay, so see, we aren't using the velocity. We had this at one point where we were doing this. We were updating the entity based on its velocity. We're essentially doing that with walk speed, but it's not quite, because it's like if this is one part of the equation, right, where we're updating our positioning based on the walk speed and its current position, there's another part where we're updating our dy based on a successful collision with aqueous, which would be what we did yesterday. I don't know where that is. I know we inherit the knockback. We assign the knockback right here. Okay. So see, we are doing a dy assignment here, but dy isn't actually moving our player's y position, is it? I mean, it's got to be somewhere. Let's see. dy. Oh, it's really just becoming hit. Then we slow our dy. Okay, so we do... Okay, so this line right here, we do update our entity with our velocity. And then this is the part that kind of slows down. Oh my gosh, you know, like every time we come across a problem with this, I'd see that old comment and it says, should we nest this? It's causing bugs. That's a bad comment. I guess I'm fine with it causing bugs as a comment, but nesting doesn't really mean anything to me. Okay, so we update our velocity here, and this is where our velocity slows down to a stop. And that only occurs if we're hit, if the entity is .hit, which is whatever. We assign hit getting true, in this case, with a Flamma collision, which is fine. And then in aqueous, we also have a .hit gets true here for the aqueous projectile. Right? Yeah. Okay, I'm just seeing another line down here that this is doing some splashed assignment. If we're splashed, go ahead and do that, but then we set splash here. We're setting splash here, and then we're also setting the color here, so this whole thing might be unnecessary. It looks like it's working. Okay, so I guess it's good. It's good that our entity's updating by dx and dy, because that means we can assign the appropriate value based on what type of collision it is, so that we can get the right slide on the knockback from the gecko. So I'm going to just delete this stuff because this is old. Oh, actually unsplash. We do need to get unsplash, which is going from the nerf slow splash state to go back to their original walk speed after a certain amount of time. We're not too worried about that just yet, but I'm going to leave it. And we do want... Where do we do this? Okay, so right here. See how we're only ever assigning a positive value to the dy here, which is why he only ever slides down. The gecko only ever slides down. Sometimes we want a negative dy to slide up. Sometimes we want a negative dx to slide left. So we have to do that assignment here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just make I'm going to make a local variable called local knockback speed. And we're just going to kind of quarter our spell knockback because it's not as potent as the Flamma knockback, but we want this knockback speed assigned here. So the only difference now, I guess we can do a simple check because we kind of just have to find out, well, no, it is kind of complicated because we have to find out the direction the projectile is moving in. So how are we updating the projectile's location? Because when you think about it, right, the game's running 60 FPS and it doesn't know anything about movement. It just knows what is on the current frame, you know, when you think about it like that. So like we just get a snapshot of it. So we can't easily tell if the projectile should trigger a top collision, a side collision, because we don't know where it came from. You know, if it just appears as a collision, it's like, okay, well, it could be pretty left of the colliding object, so it might mean we need to inherit a positive dx. But also, if it was, it could be, should have been a top collision, giving a positive dy on the gecko if the spell came from above. And I don't think we're doing dx or dy on here, are we? On the... Okay, well, the good news is we could add a little something to this, because what basically all this is doing is saying, well, when our... Actually, so yeah, in the aqueous projectile update, we do this thing where we get the nearest tile row and tile column and we convert it to pixels, and then we're going to check our direction on our player, and if we're facing down, this is just to clamp, this Y offset is just to clamp the projectile so it can't go off screen. So this is in the update for the projectile. So we could have a thing where it's hard. We need to find when we actually instantiate and deploy a projectile upon a successful cast, because at that point we can do something like assign the direction at that point in time. So we can say it starts off as an empty string, but we can assign this once we successfully cast. We can say, okay, well, let's just plop in the current direction of the player so we can get the direction of the spell, so that we can get the direction of the knockback for any potential collisions. I think that's right. It's hard to say, because if Tashio's facing down and the gecko is to the right of him, he fires the spell down, but it hits the left side of the gecko. Should the gecko slide down because the spell was coming down, or should the gecko move right because the spell landed on the leftmost part of the gecko, sending him flying to the right? You know, we get to make those decisions. For now, I guess it's just the direction of where the spell was going. I think I'm okay with that. But I kind of like the idea that it kind of slides in the opposite direction. It's kind of like a blast from the projectile that has its own velocity, you know? So that's kind of making me interested in exploring that. But when do we actually do an aqueous cast? it should be when we instantiate aqueous projectile. And it looks like we do this. It looks like we just init with a projectile. Yeah, it looks like we just init with it. And then just wait. Here, let's look at the update. We're waiting for this aqueous casting to be true. Okay, so where do we set that? Aqueous casting right here in the aqueous projectile. Okay. Let's put aqueous casting right here. Okay, so right here we become casting, and then we basically put the projectile, put ourself at the center of our player. And then we determine a landing spot based on these offset values. So at this point in time, we know what direction the spell is going. So what we can do is say that our self.direction now gets the value from the player direction, so that we can determine which type of velocity to add. So here, when we are doing our knockback in our entity, instead of doing the self dx, we should have like right here, an aqueous projectile on the player. We can check for such things, and we can see we want to check that aqueous projectile. We want to check its direction, because if the direction is equal to down, meaning our player's direction was down when we first became aqueous casting, then we would want to give a positive dy on the knockback speed. And then we can try the other conditions too, where we say, okay, well, if our projectile was facing up, we're going to get a negative knockback speed. And let's just see there. Let's just try to knock a gecko up at this point. Yes. We knocked him up. We knocked him up. I'm not getting him pregnant. I'm just knocking him up. Okay. We would really benefit from a red flash. Just like how when he hits us, we flash red. I think they need a soundbite for when they're collided with. And then we also need, if we're facing left or right, to give the appropriate velocity as well. So we need a sound effect for when the aqueous hits the gecko, and then we also need a visual red flash effect to kind of show, basically to show visuals that match with that hurt sound, so that we just get that instant feedback of like, oh, that did something to it. So let's do our sides here and see if our player's aqueous projectile direction is equal to left. Then we want a dx adjustment of a negative knockback speed. And then if we're going right, we're going to get a positive knockback speed. So let's see, we should get the geckos bouncing in the appropriate direction now. Let's see. Nice. Pushed him left. Pushed him down. Let's try pushing right. Right didn't seem to work all that well. Pushing left didn't seem to work all that well. It worked that time. Oh shit. Yeah, for whatever reason, right doesn't get knocked back all that much. Oh, I kind of like it. Okay. No, I think I like this. Nice. And then, you know, you could swap over to the fire spell and get him. You know, I want to make, I think, now that we have this idea for the water spell, I think what we can do is work on, we can actually make geckos a little more threatening to encourage the use of splashing them first, you know. Okay, well, this is good news. I might call it here because I want to get some reading done tonight. So let's check out for a commit here, or get diff. Okay, so we added a direction field to our aqueous projectile, and we set that direction equal to the player direction upon a successful cast. Then we assign a knockback speed based on the direction of the projectile. And that's it. It's pretty straightforward. I think good next steps might be I want to tweak the hitbox just a bit. I probably want to make the spellcast size a little smaller, and or make the entity's hurtbox smaller, or I think yeah, I want to do a little bit more testing with that, because our spellcast kind of triggered a hit when it landed in the top corner of the entity when it didn't really look like it hit him. So I want to tweak that a little bit, and then add the red flashing as well as the unsplash, which resets them back to their original walk speed and stops their projectile or their particle system. Okay, we added the gecko knockback to aqueous projectile. We will push it here to our repo. We will run credits and we will find someone to raid out to. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode where we are going to be doing some more fine tune-up on the aqueous cast, and then we can worry about making new types of enemies, because aqueous is supposed to be super effective against the guys in the volcano biome. Aqueous, this stuff we're doing here with the splash is kind of like a byproduct of using it on enemies that it isn't so effective upon. So once we test that, we can move on to the effectiveness, and then we can kind of worry about blending the difficulty of, like, have a couple here that aqueous is good for, but it, you know, it's locked. You can't get past the volcano biome without aqueous, but aqueous just helps you do stuff like here in the forest, for example, maybe for the first boss. So I think that's the direction we're headed to. We almost got, I mean, I'm pretty happy with it, but we almost got our second spell, like, complete, which is nice. at least in this early stage of the prototype of it. It's feeling good. So I'll be back tomorrow for some more development on it, and I hope you all have a great night. Thanks for watching.